Welcome back, everybody. Episode 21 here of the Leonis Report in another jam-packed week of information on the road to worldwide. Back with JB. How's it going, man? Happy Monday.
It's going good. Had a really good weekend. It was beautiful weather here in our area. Got to get outside a bit. Got out to a baseball game with the family, so that was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And yeah, we've had so much rain here, like especially on the weekends. It was didn't it was definitely nice to get back out. How about you?
So, honestly, I haven't done much. I've been laughably playing a ton of Genshin, believe it or not. Girlfriend wanted to pick that game up. She saw it. Obviously, like the graphics looked amazing. We're playing on PC, not on mobile. But she's like, "Hey, this looks really cool." Like, and we're suckers for like music and really like interesting, thematic games. And so yeah, I've been playing a lot of that. I'm kind of hooked, to be honest. But that was my
I did
weekend in a
really
nutshell.
enjoy the music in that game. I thought that was pretty well done.
Yeah,
I played it. I think we said last time. I played it a little bit on release, and got some fun out of it. But then dropped it and never went back to it.
totally. On PC, a totally different experience. Like being able to see it on the widescreen, like headphones in, the controls, like mouse and keyboard, are way easier. Yeah, it's been fun. So I did not go out this weekend. I've been gaming. Yeah, the rain has been absolutely killer here. It's just kind of put a damper on like all our normal summer plans. This is like the whitest I've been in August. No,
We got a little bit of summer left here.
yeah, get out to a beach one time before it's over.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of stuff dropping here this week in more of the visions. I mean, first things first, we did get some new information on the road to worldwide with part three. They are bumping the drop rate on the Jayden banner, the Jayden celebratory banner, and we knew that was kind of coming based off their producer letter. That being said, I'm a spoiler to the conversation. I'm a little let down that they hyped this point 0.8 drop rate as the part three of the road to worldwide. Based off the letter, it almost made it sound like, hey guys, like we hear you and this sucks and we didn't do enough, so we're gonna give you a point 0.8 drop rate in addition to whatever part three was. Not that that was part three. So again, slightly underwhelmed with how they rolled out the part two and part three there, but yeah, I don't know. How's things going for you in the last couple of weeks with the transition?
I mean, we did get the daily Visior as well for the month, which we talked a little bit about that last week. It's around 7,000, I think it comes out to for the month.
Yep.
So, I think as long as they keep that going, have that monthly stipend, that's good. Have the 0.8% and not revoke it once Alaya comes,
Yep.
as a lot of people are speculating that they will. If they do that, it's going to be another dumpster fire. And I really, if anybody at Gumi is listening, keep the permanent pool units at 0.8 or you're going to cause another big rift in the game. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Or at least not supplement it with additional kinds of paid Viz compensation and some of those
Right.
packs. That's the thing that really gets me. That I get it. They don't want to just hand out 70,000 Viz. That would, like, obviously that was never going to happen. Even a Viz back campaign would be kind of smart at the moment to say, here's an opportunity for people to like buy a bunch of Viz in order to kind of get the hopes of like, amplifying it. I think that'd be a really like band-aid solution to a lot of this that a lot of people look forward to. But yeah, just having to be suckered into the like $100 packs to get your 12K Viz is just a really bad feeling. Like I said, I like the drop rate increase because that's like a effectively less Viz you would spend overall. So it's a kind of Viz savings, even though it's not in your pocket. It would reduce the amount of spend you had you pulled it. But yeah, it's a lot of people are memeing on it in the Discord that it's a unit that nobody wants, and it's just tough because he's a good unit. It's just I think everyone's got really high expectations, and I think there is some moving of the goalposts too. That no matter what they do, we'll never be happy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier. I mean, a brand new 100 cost unit coming in at the double or the normal UR pull rates. That's nice. No matter which way you cut it. If you don't want the unit, whatever. But it is something that they're doing. It is something good. We've never seen that before on a 100 cost unit. So yeah.
Yeah, and
Hopefully they'll just continue it with Alaya because that obviously is the one that people do want, and
definitely,
they will be able to cash in and take advantage of that. If
definitely.
they go through with it.
Right, and they are staggering the timeline more than I thought they would. They did introduce Raph, and the next week was Greater Demon. Now it's Jaden, and the next week is Dark Shiva. So like there is some staggering that I didn't think was going to occur. If they dropped Dark Shiva that same week as Jayden, that's a whole different Visior crunch when you talk about what it takes to pull some of those dark espers. Whole different conversation here. So even just the pace of releases is actually a little slower than I anticipated. I thought they were going to jam a lot more in here, and that's not the case yet. So that's at least a little bit extra silver lining.
We were kind of joking about that in my guild this morning, that it's like almost like a false alarm regarding the crunch. I mean, there definitely there has been kind of a shifting around and crunching a little bit here, but it's really, at least the last few weeks, it's been kind of normal.
I would agree with that.
So, but it's, yeah, there's just, the packs, and I really wish that we would just double drop everything. Like, they're doing it here and there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I feel like they're almost making it worse by trying to piece it out and kind of extend it out so long. Whereas if they just ripped off the Band-Aid and gave us like a big gesture all at once, and people could then move on, it would actually, I think, go over much better than in this kind of slow roll that is happening right now.
It is. It is. Well, with any luck to it, it'll end sooner rather than later. Now that we're getting closer to that timeline matchup, we have a lot to talk about here. Jayden the Celebrated, brand new ice unit here introduced to the game. I know a lot of people have been relatively underwhelmed by him. That being said, that's a trend for Ice in general. That's not really unique to him, but he did see some really good play in JP for a while. Let me rephrase that. He saw some decently good play in JP for a while. It seems like he did fall off the face of a cliff with Summer Glacy coming out here, where it seems like her synergy completely took him out of the equation in terms of what she offered for Helen Reagan. That being said, he's still got a lot of really interesting mechanics that, reduce hate to zero is an exceptionally cool mechanic given the amount of like innate hate that exists in the game. Another magic scaling Pierce unit is obviously really cool. He's got that 10k magic barrier, which, we kind of inconsistently value barriers because they're so easily breakable. But 10k magic barrier, if you don't have that barrier break, that's something. There's a lot to like about it. He's got a passive that can play with the ranges. We've talked about that. He's got a lot of element res. His weapon is really cool. It's got 3 kinds of element res. We'll talk about that. Actually, screw it. We'll talk about it right now. His weapon.
One point, just to clarify, you said magic barrier. It's actually physical barrier.
Physical barrier. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, even better. I mean, there's more physical barrier break, but regardless, the point stands. That's something. And his weapon for ice units, they get 10% wind, light, and dark res for free on top of the 10% element res that he has. So there's some like really cool like bullet point things to him, even if it doesn't seem like he gets all the play that he should have.
Yeah, I really like that weapon because it's not just for him. I think it's ice units in general, so that you could throw it on Aranea if you're a big Aranea fan, or Victor maybe for like limited stuff. McLeod even, you could throw it on him, make him a little bit tankier. Obviously, it's hard to give up the ice spear and kind of the modifiers on there, but hey, maybe it gives them enough survivability that they can actually take a hit, because that's certainly a problem with some of those old ice spear units.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that people are probably gonna, pass on him by and large, but I think he's a good introduction to the Ice Cast. I do think he's a new, cool unit for the 3rd anniversary. I think he's a unit that probably will do well as the game continues to go on. I think that's the theme with a lot of these characters here that they've released this year, that even if it's not immediately they get value, there's still solid characters in the permanent pool that you talk about from 3rd anniversary on. Hyo and Howlet and Rain. Some of the Warriors, the Crystals, obviously those banners are a little more limited, but characters like Resol and Vega, they're not bad units. They're just not meta units. But I think as the game goes on, they'll be fine.
I think also if you're wanting to get into like the Rainbow Spear synergy with the job cards, because that's, if you maybe you invested in Dialdo even too, and you want to kind of go into Earth and Ice, I think he's actually really nice for that, because his LB like really suits those two teams very, very nicely. His party buff is also, I think, one of the best things about him, because it gives 25 unit resistance, which
very unique.
When you think, yeah, that's very few characters actually pass that out. I can really only think of like the Scholar buff that gives that. Maybe there's 1 or 2 others, but pretty rare. When over the course of the last year or so, it seems like almost all the damage dealers are giving area resist, of varying values, and obviously with Elia coming in and some of the select abilities that are kind of subverting that mitigation.
Right.
this actually I think might have some good value as it ages.
I agree, absolutely. And I know you pointed this out in your video too about his buff on that same buff. The reduction of 30 slash res pen for 3 turns is, I think, better than even what Howlett's is. There's some overlap there where Howlett has a similar effect, but his you have to capture, everyone in the AoE on that one single time they use that cast, whereas Jayden's is for 3 turns, whoever you hit, and he does have some very large AoEs. So I think there's some more reliability of using that. And in addition to that, you get 25% slash res on that buff. So considering what the meta units are at the moment, it's a extremely solid buff up and down. Not even talking about the secondary buff there. That's the 50% debuff effect weakening, where we talk about his survivability. That's just another cool like feather in the cap for him. There's a lot to like from that. Yeah.
I do think that he's going to have a little bit of AP issues because despite being a magic unit, that's kind of something that they've rolled him out with. Is he's got basically a physical, units AP pool at just the 18% starting bank. So
Yep.
his skills are, they're not cheap. So
No.
he's got like some high 20s and 30 kind of in that. No AP to consumption decreases for him at all, or
No.
he hit on that one buff. He gets like a flat AP restore of like 15 or 20 or whatever it is. Aside from that,
It's 15, right?
15.
And that's where some of we'll talk about this in just a couple of minutes here too. The power creep of Espers, where Dark Shiva does have some initial AP on that Esper board as well, where you talk about really min maxing his capability. That's one of those things that unfortunately, it's not a must, but man, that's a really big difference between starting AP values as well. So yeah, that's an excellent weakness that definitely should be looked out for. And I guess it's kind of why the Dark Golem, when you're talking about Earth and Ice synergy too, has a nice acquired AP on it. That's a nice extra little bit for him. That if you are going for that, it seems to fit what his weakness is.
So I think a lot of people are, for good reason, kind of looking past this release because this is kind of the end of our foresight here over these next month or two, and we do know that there's better units coming in the grand scheme of the game that are
Right.
going to be more worth the spend at least in the short term.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, he's still a good unit. I think he's a 100 cost unit, but yeah, obviously there's bigger fish to fry right now coming along.
There is, and I know for myself too. I know you've talked about this in terms of tapering the spend, not only as a sort of form of protest, but even just like economically speaking, it's just not a good way to spend your resources right now. I know it's a tough sell right now to pull units that are permapool. That's a very tough thing now that you have limited units coming out. That it is expensive, and then when you talk about really like min maxing your potential team, if you do want to buy the reincarnation scrolls every single week, that's another 5,000 Visior every single week. If you do happen to go for some of the paid packs, you can get an additional 240 I think on a weekly basis. So in terms of like really allocating your resources optimally, I don't see how you can waste 20 to 40 Viz pulling him when you have all these other opportunities to spend. It's not even talking about the vision cards, where you say even if you pass on Jade and you go for Dark Shiva, that's a pretty penny to pull that Esper and vision card. So yeah, you can be really smart nowadays.
Yeah, I mean that kind of goes back to the point about no packs in the store. Maybe I would be willing to buy a full price pack if they enhanced some of the banner, stuff that was coming back to us in the banners or in some of the Viz bundles.
Yep.
Maybe if they gave us 120 scrolls for 1K instead of the 80 that we get now, hey, that's more bang for the buck there, or at least comparable to maybe the discounted packs that we got before.
Yep.
It's another way to slice it if they just wanted us to go for the full price.
Yeah.
It is what it is, though.
It is. I know exactly. Only so many times we can talk about it, and they've obviously heard us and they've responded, and it hasn't been the responses that we've asked for. So that's its tough spot. But yeah, on the note, we do have Dark Shiva coming out as well, which is a new Ice Esper of sorts. And good point that you had brought up that that this Esper is next week. It's not this week, but this Esper is very, very much kind of like Greater Demon to Wrath, an Esper that goes really perfectly for Jayden. So just given his release, I do think it's just a good time to go over it. Talk about 19 agility here. They have that 5% all magic damage node that's there, that initial AP that we were just mentioning, and then you get both magic res and slash res. That, yeah, if you were to go to the builder here, like that's a pretty healthy board if you were just going for some of these AP and the Oh, I'm sorry. I even missed out on the AoE res here. 5 AoE res. Like, my God, talk
Yeah.
about Esper power creep. This has everything that most Espers don't.
Yeah, really nice that it gets that 10 initial AP. Actually, for Howlet, I do really like the Spectacles +6 to get him there because he doesn't have a ton of spirit penetration. He's just got the 40 that you can pick up from a passive. He doesn't like, a lot of characters, they'll have some kind of active buff or something that they could maybe throw on some more. He doesn't get that. So
Yeah,
I think Spectacles can be maybe a good one for him, and that gets him even more initial AP.
I
If
agree
you
with
get
that.
the +6 version,
Yep.
could be a good option.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have the it's got the ice, it's got the pierce attack, it's got some crit on there, some crit evasion. So
Yep.
there's a lot of good nodes here.
Definitely. Definitely. So, especially for Ice, where there have been more and more units that there's not as many, I guess, Ice Espers for magic per se. But either way, there's some good stuff here that most Esper nodes don't have.
So one other thing that I want to bring up here, actually, you could make this pretty nice like defensive Esper too with magic and slash resist and the AOE resist.
Yep.
Not too shabby.
Yep.
Especially for somebody like Howlet. Maybe if you're skipping Jayden, but you're a big Howlet guy. He does have that slash and magic res penetration debuff. So I think it works really nicely on him as well.
Completely agreed. Yeah. Yeah, and obviously go for the crit right here. I mean, you can get really flexible. Like you saw, even just highlighting the magic res, the slashes, and the AoE res, you have a lot of SP to still work with here to build that board however you want it. I mean, I think I'd probably go this route with the magic damage and the initial
Oh
AP,
yeah.
but there's a few different ways you could go if you really wanted to get creative.
Stop resistance on there too, which is big. You can get your trust stone slot back.
That's big. That's big. Well, or even add to it. There's a lot of limit breaks now that do have a stop on it, and these are high faith units, so stop is becoming more and more popular. That's a really nice one to add into the fray. Yeah, good call out there. Cool. And then the vision card that comes along with it is also another ice and water one. There obviously is the second of that kind, leaning into that. This is the 15% agility, the 10 crit evade, 38% magic. And for the unit effect, you're getting 10 AoE res, 10% magic res. There's, I'm positive, a global exclusive buff coming in. I don't recall what it is, but I think it was for ice only.
Ice attack up and unit resistance up.
And yes,
Huge.
that's cute. So the global exclusive buff is unit res and ice attack. Again, only for ice units. But AoE res and unit res on this, I mean, that's an exceptional form of survivability that, yeah, that's like, talk about power creep. That's an exceptional amount right there.
Anytime you have these vision cards, especially if it's a main slot card that you can get area resistance on there just alone, I'm already a huge fan of it. Being able to get area and unit resistance as a bestowed effect is pretty massive.
Yeah. Yep. Not even talking about what these 6 stats that you get on the top, or extra start or extra initial AP, 4 defense, 52 dex, 20 luck. God, like it's got everything you want.
Yeah, so nice card for us. A little bit of bonus accuracy there. It's going to be maybe close to 10 there, maybe 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Between the dex and luck.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, a lot to look forward to, obviously, next week, and how that supplements Jade, and to be fair, the other ice units in general, too. A lot of magic scaling ice units would really appreciate that Esper, by and large. But we do also, in addition to some of the changes, have the 140 upgrades coming here as well. Yeah, so just high level, we do have Lorila and Vadim also getting 140s, but I don't think it's enough to really change them in terms of putting them into the fray. But we got 5 URs at least to talk about here, and Alaya being maybe the second most noteworthy. Skahal might be the most noteworthy. We'll get to him in a second, though. But yeah, Alaya's here just kicking things off. The attack 20%, that wind killer 20 obviously is just meant for that element matchup. The 120 ability also now dispels AP restore and haste. It formerly only did protect, but now it does these other 2 effects as well. What do you think about the 140 for her here?
It's pretty good. Like, it's not amazing by any means. I mean, she was already like a great unit though, so and she's not really that old either, so it's not like she needed a massive bump to kind of bring her in line with current units. I think it definitely kind of specializes her when you think about like the wind killer. Her base attack, like I think it's like pretty decent for a range unit, but like when you compare it to most other physical damage dealers, it's a bit less. So I don't think the 20% attack is going to be like moving the needle that much. I think the best part here is probably that additional dispels that she gets on her armor borer. I think it's called her job 25.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, obviously we see haste everywhere. Even AP Restore is a buff on many units in terms of just their buff rotation now, not even talking about Zizabels and those TMRs. AP Restore is becoming more common. And yeah, I actually like that they went for that niche of the Wind Killer 20. If they instead did something like Missile Attack 20, that obviously applies to everything in the game. And so when you're talking about balancing and maybe trying to rein her in a little bit and some of the oppression that she has as a missile unit, which she does, she's still got a way above average missile res pen. The vision cards even give more of that. The modifiers, the amount of utility. She's the perfect blend of damage and utility, which is very odd for a ranged unit. You usually get one or the other, but not both. And so, yeah, I think this is a perfectly appropriate 140 given how good she is.
So I mean, Eliza has already had her 140 now for a little while. So the Ice Girls will be back. Of course, I mean the missile units. They're like we talked about on some of the map overviews and things. They're definitely map dependent on when you can really break them out and have them be optimal. But when those maps do come along, they can be quite good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to breaking her back out again.
Yeah, same. They're the kind of units that if you're not prepared for it, the fight's over before it even begins. That first turn, they got the range on you. That if you're not ready for it, you got a character out of the fight on the second turn, you're done already.
Dialdo and Raf are definitely tough to get through for those ice units, but Eliza bringing the Imperil on the limit burst, and then Elia being able to follow up with the missile Imperil, I think is pretty powerful still.
I completely agree. Yeah. Yeah, and then talk about Imperils, we got Skahal coming up next, who's also getting his 140, and this is a really good one considering how good he already was. This is an additional decrease of attack time 250 that is obviously stacks with the equipment decrease attack time, in addition to what you might do for Espers. So this gets him to some exceptionally fast cast times for his devastatingly good abilities. That crit evade of 25 is very, very good, if only for that. You talk about hitting courage or not. If you can eliminate the amount of critical hits and the damage variance that occurs with those critical hits, that's probably more oftentimes that he doesn't get brought to 1 HP. Maybe it's, 100 HP, and so he'll die on the next hit anyway, theoretically, because he's below that 70% threshold. But the fact is that it doesn't proc. I don't know. I like it for just being able to not chunk a lot of damage off him. And obviously the 120, you're now decreasing AP of 20 for everyone in that AoE, which is powerful if you can nerf how many attacks they get.
I mean, when you think about Skahal, like he really blows up a lot of physical damage dealers, especially. So knocking off 20 AP from off of one of those units, if maybe they don't have an AP restore, that can be pretty meaningful, especially if he's able to string off a couple of those in a row. Getting that additional cast time also, it's going to make it even easier for him to one tick those spells. So yeah. It's not like it's not really increasing his damage really in any way here, but everything adds up, especially when he was a unit that was still being used at level 120. So
yep,
he didn't really need a ton to bring him up again.
No, well, the biggest strength is his synergy with Resnick, where when you talk about that decrease AP of 20, it essentially becomes a battle of sustain, right? Where if you bring him down to 1, she heals him back to full or above 70. You bring him back down to 1, she heals him back up above 70. That can only go on so many times before you run out of AP. And if he's nuking you with this decrease AP 20, you're reducing the amount of turns that interaction can occur. And at some point, you just run out of AP, right? And then you just die because he wins that battle of attrition much quicker. So that's like a very sneaky good one for him.
And if you don't happen to have the zombie TMR, maybe you do have Roy Mustang's TMR. That could be, I think, pretty cool for Skahal. You can now get decreased 40 AP.
Yep.
On Thundaga Disposer, so
that's a really good.
I think that could be a pretty cool play.
Shh, don't give anyone any ideas. What are you doing, JB?
Yeah.
Come on, this is.
I don't know.
This is bad.
I'm giving away my tech here.
And then we'll keep moving along. We got Raldor here. We got 2 fire units, and Raldor is his strike attack 15, more of that pierce and missile res niche of 10 resistance, where that's where his shining point is, and his 120 abilities also now decrease enemy defense pen, so their innate defensive penetration of 40 for 3 turns. That one I think is okay, but because he's very single attack oriented, he's only single attack oriented, you're very likely to be landing that ability on a tank majority of the time, and I don't think the tank's the one that really need that decrease defense
Yeah.
pen of 40. It's just it sounds like it'd be good on paper, but in practice, not great. And even that Pierce and missile res, it's really the Pierce res that I think is his true strength, because the missile res does have enough penetration in the game right now. At least the Ice Girls do. That resistance doesn't mean as much, even if you get into the 70s and 80s. Pierce certainly does, but the missile, debatable.
Yeah, so I mean, with his passive on, he's going to be walking in with more than 50% of for Pierce and missile before you even get into gearing or espers or cards or any of that. So he can really fairly easily null both of those,
Yeah.
which is pretty unique in the game. It definitely has a niche for, that you can break out if you have certain metas to develop. I agree though that he does at least counter the ice archers pretty heavily, just being fire. So
Right.
the level of penetration on the rest of the missile units that we have thus far isn't quite as good. I mean, Melania is gonna definitely have some too, but she doesn't have the vision card that support that the ice team does.
Good point. Good point.
I agree. I was thinking that same thing about the 120 ability. That's yeah. I really wish it was a select two that maybe he could hit the tank and then a damage dealer next to him, and then I think that would be an excellent ability.
Absolutely.
As it stands now, it is his longest range ability, so it's something he'll use kind of going in. It's a range 4. Everything else he has is like range 3 or less. So maybe if you can line him up against the other team's damage dealer before he gets to the tank, that could be a play. But yeah, I think I really don't think it's going to be that compelling though overall.
No, not moving the needle for him. And on that topic of moving the needles for fire units, Glaciella here too. 15% slash res, 10 AoE res, and her big giant like diamond. She's got a couple of them, I think. 120 ability now also dispels 8 edition and gets an extra cast. So it's from 2 casts to 3 casts with a giant AoE dispel. I actually really like this for her. I just think she's so far down the pecking order for fire units that isn't going to make a big difference for me. That I think Kefka's obviously superior. I think even Roy Mustang is superior in his own right. Does a little bit differently than what Glaciella brings, but when you go down the list of magic units and fire units, I just don't think she's as strong of a play. Although Dispel is still very valuable, but then again, a lot of units have it right now that you don't need Glaciella if you're looking for a Dispel.
I think that she's got some stuff that you can work with. I think that you can potentially, get something out of her. I just don't. I agree. She's not going to be a top tier play. I wish that slash res was something else, like maybe some more cast time down.
Yeah.
Because I think that one issue that she runs into is that you kind of want to take both casting reduction passives that she has. Obviously, she's got the passive 1, which is kind of gives her a bunch of things, but then you have the speed cast there that kind of helps her get to that 2 or 1 tick zone for some of her longer cast spells. I wish that she could use the scholar passive instead and get the accuracy, because she definitely needs accuracy to be able to hedge against that weakness as well. So
Definitely.
I don't love it overall, but I think that she's definitely I'd rather use Roy or Kefka, like you said.
Exactly. And finally, Charisse, a character who I liked upon release, particularly for her cost. I think her cost does her a lot of justice. I just have, unfortunately, really never seen her used ever, except the 1 week she was like the arena bonus unit. But she's getting 20% attack, and similar to Elia, that doesn't mean a lot because they have a lower overall base of attack. The decreased AP consumption to 15 is nice, I guess, but I don't think that was a weakness of hers. The slash res 10 is very menial, and her main AoE ability, it's not her 120, it's her main AoE, gets 30 human killer. So sure, probably good for auto PvP, and will obviously help her pack a greater punch, but I just don't think it does enough to move the needle for her either. But then again, limited stuff is certainly a different conversation given her cost. That's a big asterisk compared to these other units where, I don't think they get the same value.
So, I mean, the way that I was reading that human killer is that it lasts for 3 turns. So she gets basically a 30 mod buff for 3 turns, which actually is kind of nice.
If that's what it is, that's way different. And it's, that's way different.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a noticeable bump to her damage output with the attack there as well. Her specialty already was kind of that decreased AP consumption. She has she has some of that already in her kit, and then her special bow gives her even more when she crits. So I think she can be sitting at like 50% decreased AP consumption once the active buff kicks in from her bow, which I think the unit is it's almost like designed to really strike quickly. You know, with one buff, she's in there, and then she can kind of outlast the other team. AP wise. Uh, but whether that actually works in practice, I haven't necessarily seen it yet.
No, I haven't either. It's she's better, but not. I'm not looking forward to using anything with her.
Yeah, Wind already has so many good like low cost options like Dario and HLL
Right.
that yeah, I think yeah, she's struggling to find a spot sometimes on those teams.
I would agree entirely. But yeah, that's what we have for the 140s at least here. And as we keep moving along, we do have a couple other things coming in, at least for new content this week. One of them is the Realmscourge event, which is kind of unique. It's a new sort of PvE boss, if you will, and it looks like it's going to be multi, and you're going to create a team. And it's very nichely specific to Jayden, though, or at least Pierce units. So the idea being that if you look at the stats, and it's on WOTV Calc, and I'll find it, hopefully post it later. There's a bunch of resistance penetration, like nullification or decreases that you can't just go full slash units. And there's a lot of status effects that are obviously very high that you're not able to gear against all of them. There's a lot of elemental debuff res, so it's very specific to Pierce units, Jayden in particular. But Pierce units, by and large, I think are the group that are going to have to tackle this. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing that they're doing with it. Yeah, the biggest thing I think most people are looking at are the random Viz lottery at the end there.
Yeah, I think that's I really wish that they had leaned more into this over the course of the game. We did have one of these events. I mean, there was no prizes or anything, but they did have kind of a brutal sort of multiplayer focused mission, maybe once or twice before in the past. I remember doing one with some friends where we were up against a bunch of carbuncles, and I don't know if it was like a couple of years ago, but that I had a lot of fun with. So I'm glad to see it kind of coming back. I hope it's more of a regular thing because I think that some of multiplayer PVE stuff I think is a fun idea.
I agree.
In terms of like the prizes and stuff, cool. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of people that win, but if you get lucky and hit that 100K, I think you're going to be pretty happy about.
Oh my god, that'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, in theory, I actually like this mode, and this, in my opinion, used to formerly be what the raids were, where they would typically release a new character, and I think the OG one is like Lucia, right, like way back in the day, and then they would release a raid boss, and that raid boss specifically would be like hard countered and soloable by that new unit, and so you had a real like short term incentive to pull the unit that week, max them that week, and then get something in return. Because back in the day, those raids gave some really exceptional equipment. The equipment's not nearly as good anymore, and the shops aren't as special. But there was a time where like you kind of got some return on investment if you went hard on pulling a unit. So for someone like Jayden, I actually don't conceptually hate this. Where if you said, we're going to do a PVE mode, we're going to release the unit, those that rush to build him, you're going to enter a lottery, you might get some Viz back, there might be some really great rewards. If that's how they pitch this, I actually think it's a really fun way to try to incentivize some people to pull a unit and build them quicker. Obviously, I think one of the perks of it is it does favor more experienced, or at least more seasoned accounts. Then again, not really. If the strength of that PVE unit is the unit in that moment, then all that really matters. If you pull Jayden, how much else do you really need? You either have trust stones or you don't. You either have an Esper or you don't. Like you either got the vision cards or you don't. There's not a whole lot to build on other than that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't studied the fight too much quite yet to know like what all the weaknesses are, but I know you mentioned a lot of status effects there, so maybe that new Balo cell phone could be kind of interesting.
Yep. And yeah, people are gonna come into like Calamity Guard and some unique comps to try to like heal up, and yeah, it not the worst thing in the world. I can see why people are upset with it because you basically have to pull Jayden or have to have pulled a top tier Pierce unit to even be competitive with it. But I won't knock it yet until I see it in action.
So is he like really heavy on defense, or have like a physical bear or something to kind of nullify Victora and Aranea? McLeod and that
No, hold on.
series of units.
Let me pause. And yeah, just pulling it up, just so people know what we're talking about. Might as well have the information. So just kind of recapping here. Talk about resistances. He's 70% slash res. It's 0 to pierce, but in the 40s and 30s and 20s to the other kinds. He's essentially full resistances to all status of ailments. But you talk about the elemental chain res of 50, immune to CT change, so you can't really chain off him very easily. The debuff res for all attack type and all element types, so you can't imperil him at all from elements or attack types. And so, yeah, that's kind of where a lot of people are. You can't just bring in a Bradley and go 100 slash spin or a Sephiroth. You really do have to lean into the Pierce units in order to try to clear this and do the damage necessary.
The boss himself is non-elemental,
right?
So he doesn't have any innate weaknesses or anything. So
Well,
I mean, if you have units that have heavy penetration, I mean, there's quite a few units that do have that can reach 80 to 100. That they could you could chain up and do some damage that way.
Definitely.
It's a thick boss though, 600,000 hit points there that you're gonna have to chain through. So he doesn't have chain resistance, so I think that's
No,
probably gonna be.
I think he does 50. Oh, no,
he does.
He's got elemental chain resistance, but no, if you're
Okay.
if you're chaining pierce attacks, right, you can go at it that angle, which you should, I would think.
Gonna cut into it at least a bit there with that chain resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I'm excited to kind of tackle it and see how to bring him down because I haven't watched any JP videos or anything about this event, so
No, same.
I'll be going into it fresh.
Yep, me too. We also have the new Reliquiary quest coming out for both the axe and the spear. This axe looks really, really good. First off, both attack and magic per usual, but this is 40% damage done by skills. They'll also cost TP, though, based on their AP cost, which is fine. Physical damage dealers don't need that glut of TP they start off with. But it's 20 slash attack and 20 decrease AP consumption as well. I know Vega, most noticeably, as you mentioned, and we talked about, comes to mind first off. I think this is probably best in slot for him, even more than his own weapon that has all the mods. I think this 40% far outweighs that, and the decreased AP consumption is huge.
Yeah, so that it's essentially like Summer Helena's or Roy Mustang's buff, where they get that he's going to get whoever uses is going to get that 40% additional skill modifier. So that it will be better than the Lightning Axe, which is a 30 mod.
I don't even think it's mod. Isn't that flat percentage at the end of the damage calculation? No.
No. This one works just like Summer Helena's or Roy Mustang's buff. The one that's a flat at the end of the damage calculation is written differently. It's like, it shows like the faith calculation 200% to do X amount of more damage.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be it should be an effective 60 mod here between the slash attack and then the 40% damage done.
Good point. I see how that's written there then. Okay, yeah. That's basically a modifier. Okay. Yeah, regardless. Excellent new weapon here. And the second one is the spear that's coming in here, where obviously accuracy oriented with 20 accuracy on the main stats, 20 on the board stats, 20 pierce attack. But the big thing here is when you fall below 60%, you'll be able to decrease AoE res of 10 in your damage calculation for just that cast, which is obviously really cool. We're seeing a lot of extra AoE res here. I mean, I don't necessarily love it that it's when you're below 60%. That's kind of an odd threshold to be at, and you're in kind of a danger zone, if you will. But you talk about X factors, which a lot of these weapons are. It's just that one little X factor that changes the flow of battle, and all of a sudden everything's different. I'm sure that's going to come in very handy for many people.
Sometimes it's hard to know exactly how these are written, if it's exactly how it actually ends up in the game.
Right.
I don't know if that means that whether your target is less than 60% HP or whether you're less than 60% HP. Definitely have to test that out once I get my hands on this, but
that's a good
either way. I agree. Like it's something that's it's hard to count on exactly if it's going to be relevant in the battle. You may not take any damage if it is, indeed for yourself. So I like this one a bit less than the axe. I think it's a bit less universally valuable.
I'd agree with that. And most spears do have a bunch of extra modifiers. And the accuracy here is kind of nice, but I don't think it's nice enough to forego going into just an Alex ring instead or some other form of accuracy. It's a lot of accuracy here, don't get me wrong, but the trade-offs I think are relatively even.
Yeah, so I think I mean there's a couple spears that give accuracy now that like the ice spear was one, and then maybe one or two others. But yeah, 40 between the base stats and then the passive effect. I think that's actually probably the best thing about this thing.
That's what I would
Uh,
think too. But then again, I know the accuracy tends to get cut in half in some weird ways with shutstones and whatnot. So that 20, it kind of gets devalued in the broad scheme of things. It still is good. I just don't think it's the flat 40 that many people might expect, but it's close.
yeah, yeah.
All right, then in other content, boy, we had a lot of stuff to do if you weren't planning on doing things already. We're getting 5 times arena and free match medals. We're getting limited Guild War, which has no cost restrictions this week. It's literally just a map, and they're calling it limited Guild War. We have quick pick match coming out that hopefully does not get canceled 2 days in because of a glitch on the map. That would be really nice if that didn't occur. And so those three things all together obviously going to take up a lot of extra time here in terms of just daily events, if you will. I'm looking forward to it personally, just to kind of mix things up a little bit. But yeah, how you feeling about the content?
Yeah, I know free match it's usually kind of the tumbleweeds are blowing unless the 5 times medals are going through. So that's good. Work on those Hermes sandals and plat armor while you can. The limited guild war, I really don't like it when they don't pose a cost limit. I think that it's like what's the point at that point of calling it limited guild war?
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's a fail by Gumi operations to introduce the map with no cost restrictions.
I would agree with that entirely. Yeah, or yeah, any restrictions at all, really. Even if you made some other restriction not in cost related, to say element only or something to that effect. But to just go
Is it?
freebie, it's just the competitive disparity is too large in the limited guild war that it just ends up being the strong feasting on the weak, and that's not fun for half the player base.
Plus, it's just going to be the same, Wrath walls or Dialdo walls or whatever that we are seeing on a daily basis in regular Guild Wars. So sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of change of pace here when these come along, at least in terms of that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect perspective on it too. Absolutely, absolutely. And in addition to that, we're getting some big changes here. We'll talk about the quality of life ones in a second, but the limit burst system is coming in here now. From what I can tell, they're not releasing the material to invest in this new system until a couple of weeks from now. So this is not going to be an immediate change this week. We're going to have to wait till the end of the month to get the material to actually do it. But just kind of recapping, and I think you can probably speak to this even more in depth than I can. It's essentially a system where they're upgrading character limit breaks, and they're doing a slow rollout over time of characters every single week, and they're going through that usual order of kind of like the old school rollout units of like Stern and L, some of the older units, and they work their way back up. But some of these limit break upgrades are fairly substantial, and I think one of them that came to mind for you that you might have mentioned was Gilgamesh. Did I describe that properly? Anything else you want to add about the limit break system?
So that's exactly it. This is essentially, they initially did the masteries and then they did the job updates. This is kind of their way to go back and give older characters relevance again for this year now that they've finished, some of those mastery abilities and older upgrades. So this is the next phase of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gilgamesh is a good one to look at because, I mean, his limit burst, I've talked about it before, probably the worst in the game
Yep.
because it's done based on magic damage. Even the ailment on there, it's only a 30% chance to slow, which, there's plenty of characters that have higher than that on regular abilities. So then you look at the AP cost of 69 that it is today. It's absolutely awful.
Yep. But yeah, a lot of
Look,
these are getting huge upgrades. I mean, you nailed all of the major talking points there, where you're going from 30% chance to slow to 67%, the drastic drop in AP from 69 to 43. Not even talking about the extra damage just from the barrier break, the 70% extra magic damage, the magic buff that's there. It's a higher mod, and the hit chance. So this is a fairly substantial limit break upgrade. The one thing I'm not sure of though is, and I think you might know this, it's a binary upgrade, right? Like you either unlock it or you don't. There's no like leveling system, right?
correct. Yeah. So it's actually on the ability tree. There's something that opens up at the bottom that you have to farm these new materials to actually open it up and enable it.
Yep. Yep. And so
Yes.
you're gonna get the age old question like, is it worth it? Is it good? I think the answer is most likely going to be if the unit was bad, the limit break's not going to make a bad unit great. It's standard stuffing. It's kind of like bad characters getting 140 upgrades. It's really to kind of keep pace with where the game goes. And so, you get a character that's not great. I think Eld is probably a really good example of that, where you have a unit who just by and large isn't a great unit. And regardless of what they give him for this limit break upgrade, even if it's really, really good, probably not going to change the the complexion of the character here. This one is essentially getting courage on his limit break. It's also getting unit res of 30 for 3 turns. And that's really it. So, like, you ask the question, like, is that a better limit break? The answer is obviously yes. That's a substantial buff, but like, it's Eld. It's getting a second use here, so that is kind of something. But I don't think it's going to drastically change a lot of these characters.
Yeah, I mean, this does nothing for his AP struggles. It does nothing for, some of his damage concerns. Like he doesn't have a very competitive penetrations when it comes to defense pen or anything like that. It makes him a little bit tankier, which is good. Like he's kind of a pseudo tank. But I mean, I think we have to temper our expectations a bit with some of these older units because they are old for one, and then they are 80 cost as well. So I don't think it really makes sense that they would be competing with the latest and greatest 100 cost units.
Yeah. But
Gilgamesh is though I think I have seen some screenshots of it doing some significant damage, and it is a very it's a large AoE slow, so I think that's going to be a pretty nice upgrade for him.
I'd agree with that. He's a unit that's not far off. He's on the pecking order, and I like the concept of it. I do like that they're going another angle of upgrading these. I know in a lot of my reviews, I've always kind of discounted some of the limit breaks because they're typically single use, and I admit I have been biased from the Guild War perspective, where I've always had the opinion that if you need your limit break to win the fight, it's typically not a good indication because it means if you go for a second Guild War fight, whether it's attack or defend, if you're going to lose because you don't have the limit break, that's a bad thing from just like a build perspective. But there's a ton of other types of content in this game, from arena to quick match to free match, where you only get one fight, and so these limit break upgrades are exceptionally potent for still a wide variety of content. Yeah, I love the angle they're taking on them.
Why don't we look at one other one? I thought look at Miranda's, which is one that came this week. I thought that one was pretty interesting too.
You're about to make me very happy because I've been looking for reasons to use her, and I have been, but I need more reasons to use her.
I think that she's a great unit.
I think so
she's
too.
Really, really good.
So
this one gets it gets the reduced counter chance 100, which is nice. It's still got the confuse there. Now it's going to decrease all element resistance by 30. And it takes away the friendly fire. So this is like that burst AoE. Sometimes it could be hard to line up, depending on where your teammates are. So similar to like Cloud's upgrade, you can see that new icon there on the left. No friendly fire for this now, so that's increases the likelihood that you'll be able to pull that out.
I love it. That's substantial. I love this upgrade to the limit break.
Yeah, really, really nice.
Good call out there. All right, more reasons to use her. Good stuff. All right. Well, then, in addition to the limit breaks, we have some quality life upgrades, which JP got, which we're getting, which honestly are fine. A couple of these I like more than others. I'll run through these real quick. The first one is that you're able to now batch your barracks items. That when you're using your items, you can kind of select more than a couple at a time. To be fair, I don't think that was a huge button clicker problem for many people. At most, maybe it was 4 to 6 clicks, but I don't know. Better than nothing. We like sliders.
Anytime you can reduce clicks, I think it's a good thing. Like, I mean, I'm usually filling up my food in there 3 or 4 times a day, so I can reduce 10 clicks a day. That's fine.
Exactly. And then this is a nice one in terms of reducing clicks. The trust stones, that if you go to, let's say, take an item and you have to unlock all 6 letters on the trust stone, not only do you have to unlock all 6, but you have to level them from level 1 to level 2. Just a lot of clicks. And at this point, I have it by muscle memory, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing. Here, you're able to select multiple of them and unlock multiple and level multiple. So that should have been there from the start.
Yeah, this is something that should have absolutely been there from the start. I know that this specific the fact that you have to do this at all is something that turned people off immediately to the system before they even talk about getting into the shards and building up the passives and all that nonsense.
Yep.
There was absolutely no reason to have this in the game. So long overdue. Glad it's there. Unfortunately, I've already unlocked most of my TMRs at this point, but at least it'll be good going forward for any new ones coming.
I'll be honest, I'd be cool if they even just got rid of it. Just have every item unlocked already. Because at this point, the adamantite materials are so abundant in the content you clear, that's not a real bottleneck anymore for anybody. That I have no idea why you would ever only lock 2 out of your 6. You would never do that. You would never do that. And you would never only go to level 1, not level 2. Because if you go to level 1 only, you can't use pink trust stones. You're only yellow. Well, no one's using yellow ever anyway. Like, literally, I've never met anyone who was. So just get rid of it. Just let us use them. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been, I think, probably easier for them to do, is just eliminate the cost rather than, coding some, easier way to do it. So
Yep. Yep. And then we're getting some menu upgrades here. One of them is that they're going to display the unit and AoE res in the menu screen, which is a massively good quality of life change. That's a necessity that I'm looking forward to seeing.
And they said accuracy and evade are coming. I think I read that maybe in the next update.
I like those.
Yeah.
I don't love those. Those are okay because we've talked about this. There's so many other hidden numbers that go into that calculation that I think those numbers alone are more misleading than not sometimes when they have them on the screen. Where I remember, I will never forget this. Someone in the subreddit was like, "I have a Una with 150 accuracy, and that seems really good, and I can't hit evade units." And I just wanted to be like, "Ugh. No wonder you think you can hit stuff, because like 150 sounds really good compared to other units, but her luck and her dexterity and all these things are so trash." Good, but I wish they got more creative. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I wish it was the actual crit rate. I wish it was the actual accuracy and evade rate when you actually factor in the totality of it. It would have been a better way.
I would say, and maybe they have. I don't know if I've seen this from JP. In a perfect world, I would love for them to have on that screen an actual total hit rate. At this point, we've data mined it. We know what the equation is for luck and dexterity. Do that math in the menu screen for us. Actually take what the unit's current luck is, their current dexterity is, what their current accuracy is. Do the math, and then just show us the total gross accuracy rate. That, to me, is what needs to happen. Not this, like, random stat.
I mean, the game figures it out and calculates it. They should be able to display that on the screen.
Yep.
So,
yep.
I do like that they are adding in some of these hidden numbers. That's stuff that's, again, long overdue. We've had unit and area resistance in the game since Odin and Death Machine came out in the first year of the game. So yeah, good to have it finally.
Yep. And then from the formation screen, they're getting some extra, like, I don't know, screen areas where they're talking about cost details that instead of like switching back and forth between the menu, if you forget what the cost restriction is, it'll show it there for you as a reminder, which is, again, quality of life. That's nice. And they're increasing the number of party formations, which is really nice. The one thing I'm dying for here, though, is increasing the number of trust stone templates to save trust stone templates on. You only get 10, and I need way more than 10. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, so the party formations, I'm a big fan of because they specifically mentioned the dual area, which for somebody like me that plays manual, plays auto, I'm always shuffling in and out, from my templates, different formations and things. So if that gets bumped up to 20 now instead of 10, that's really big.
Yeah.
Especially like with WDL stuff.
I was just gonna say that.
Put in different teams in there.
Yep, half of my duelist is my WDL teams. I don't want to touch those.
But yeah, Gumi, if anybody out there is listening, the community desperately wants more trust stone templates. That's especially big PvE players and PvP players as well.
Yep.
And they like to shuffle those around quite often. So
well, even mathematically speaking, think of Guild Wars, right? You have 3 attackers, 3 defenders. So that's 6 different sets theoretically right there. If you only get, what is it? Is it 10 currently, or is it more than that? It might just be 10. So that's 6 out of 10. Then you have 3 units in the arena, right? That's another 3. Boom. You're already at your cap. So like that's the bare minimum of content that people do already is just not enough for the templates. Never mind the free batch and the WDL and the PvE weeks and the everything. Quick match this week. You're gonna need 6 characters at once to have their trust stone set up at once, and that overlaps with Guild Wars. It's tough.
Yeah, it always comes up in the quick pick week that I'm trying to fiddle around with the damn templates.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So good. All right, that's everything we're going to talk about for the quality life upgrades, all the new stuff that's coming out this week. For the War Room in particular, we are going to try to do something a little more fun in the weeks going forward here, where when we get new maps, we will try to do some live PvP with each other, kind of just see the maps firsthand, maybe do some fun theory crafting, throw a team out there that we've been maybe either seeing success with or, I don't know, want to bring something attention to.
And most importantly, keep the weekly win-loss record.
Oh, Christ. Yes. Yes, no pressure. That's we're
Yeah,
gonna have our own league, the Leonis Report League. We'll
yeah,
yeah.
good times.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I do like. I'm looking forward to more of that. And for those that haven't seen already, I did leave VIP officially. I'm in the I'm Retired Guild, which is basically like the veterans of VIP that just kind of go and slum around and have fun with. So I'm still involved with them. Everything is fine. But now that I'm not in there, I won't have as much like handcuffs on for what I can show for Guild War stuff because it's the secrets and competitive, you know, whatever. That yeah, we can have some more fun with that.
Should be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we targeted the limited Guild War map. That'll be in the game for us next week. We
Right.
can play around with that, maybe show some limited formations or kind of what we think is out there, and
Yep.
see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get moving along here then. We have the Leonis Spy Report. And, we had talked a little bit about Summer Glaciella last week. We didn't really cover her vision card in depth, though, which is a very intriguing and good vision card, quite honestly. This vision card is for books, fists, katanas, and another red mage vision card, which I'll take it. Keep giving us those vision cards. We obviously like seeing some of these classes built up. This is an exceptionally good one here. That 24% area res, the 40% acquired AP, 25% debuff weakening. There's a vision card ability, and a lot of great units here. What are your first thoughts when you're putting this together?
Was very, very intrigued to see that vision ability on there, because that is kind of something we rarely see on the cards. They only come around like once in a while. But this one actually, we haven't seen this type of vision ability before. It's a new counter, like a secondary counter that you're able to get access to with the card,
Hmm,
and it gives you 50% strike damage mitigation for 3 turns.
huge.
And I
Holy
think
cow.
I think it's like a 70% proc rate, or maybe even 100%,
Wow.
something crazy like that. So
Wow.
if the strike unit doesn't have any sort of reaction block, then you're cutting into their damage big time.
Significantly. Right. There's already not a lot of penetration. Add this into it, my goodness.
But yeah, the card itself, it's another area resist card, and it's some power creep there at 24%. So because that's that main effect. It's got the acquired AP, the debuff weakening, pretty strong card. I think a lot of people say, why is there another card with area resist for the strike group? That's going to make the third one. So that's certainly something to think about. I think at that point you're kind of considering, do you actually want to mix and match strike with maybe some of these other groups, red mage, or katana or book? And I think that kind of determines whether you're going to pull this card if the other stuff isn't interesting.
No, you bring up a good point about the fist. I will say this one will replace the current. I think it's the Minwu card. I don't exactly remember, but it's one of them. But it's a magic-oriented card that has fists on it. That it's the area is. This is obviously a physical attack one, so this would basically replace it. You could probably throw the other one in the sub slot and get still some area res, but I do think the game has gotten to a point where it's released enough units who are good against strike. It's released enough vision cards that have strike res on it. I still think Alaya being the lone exception, there's not a lot of strike res pen in the game. So they've given us the tools necessary to defend against that kind of team, that I'm okay with them giving them this kind of vision card because there's counterplay for it. Whether or not you've pulled for it and pulled for the units that have it and pulled for the vision cards, that's a different conversation. But it's in the game, so they can only do so much related to that. But this card, I absolutely love. Obviously, it's like up and down stacked for water when you look at Glaciella, Faris, Perrine, and Astrius. I mean, no disrespect to Miranda or Summer Glassy, who are also exceptionally viable water units to go into here. But the rest of the units on here, I mean, Ice has some really solid characters. Dark, obviously, you're seeing Sephiroth and Dwayne. Light, a couple really great characters here, not only from Elena, Sylvie, Lucio, but even like for cost of Valentine Miranda is a really good unit. Overall, very happy. I'm not even talking about Lightning, but a couple great people there too.
Good ice card too if you missed out on Maniple or Dark Golem.
Great call out there
You got
too.
you got most of the quite a few of the significant ice units on there: Snow, Velis, Reagan, and Howlet.
Yep.
Yeah, I really love that debuff weakening. I think out of all of the sort of next generation mitigation stats they've been tinkering with and adding to the game, this one I think is one of the most impactful. I think that it's more impactful than chain resistance personally in terms of what it does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this card.
Yeah.
Right before this one, the other area resist card for strike is the Elia card. So I think that's part of the reason why people were kind of questioning it.
Good call out. Good call. You're right.
But yeah, Elia's card allows you to mix fist with the Pierce group, and then this card would allow you to mix fist with that red mage or katana group.
Good call out. Either way, I'm never gonna be upset with that because that's exactly what we were asking for with these vision cards. You need area, unit, or agility on one of these cards to make these rainbow teams possible. And so even if they hand out 3 to 4 iterations of it, I'm cool with it because as you just mentioned, it's a completely different overlap of weapon types. And so sure, maybe the fist units double dip and they get stronger if you go mono fist, but at the same time, this opens up a bunch of doors that people need to explore, and they're going to have to. So yeah, I like it.
Probably going to see it in a couple of weeks. I think based on the limit burst change, I think the 30th is when we're going to get the summer stuff.
I could see that. I would. I don't have a strong feeling of when they get released, although I would imagine Gumi might be trying to not break our spirits too harshly in terms of releasing Alaya and then the summer units and then Melnia and whatever else. We don't even know what JP has next. They could have another busted unit coming out for all we know. That yeah, we'll see.
Well,
how this
they
out.
did tease like some live stream where they're gonna do like a Final Fantasy numbered. At least that's what people are speculating.
Right.
That's gonna get announced.
Yeah, we get a Final Fantasy 8 or 9. It's got to be. It's either 8, 9, 12. I think that's really it in terms of non-numbered. I'm sorry, in terms of numbered titles we haven't gotten. Final Fantasy 3 would be suicide right now if they were teasing that in lieu of the others.
Yeah, so what I was saying earlier is that, I mean, we're still a couple months away from JP's 4th anniversary. It would seem weird to me to drop a big hype like 8 or 9 or 12 right now. That's it seems a little bit premature, right before the 4th anniversary. I almost feel like it's going to be a rerun, maybe adding some new characters from something we've seen before, like a 13 or maybe Final Fantasy 4. I'd love to see Iridia in the game.
That'd be
Dark
great.
Cecil. I mean, there's a lot they could do there. I mean, there's a lot of characters we're still missing that are, fan favorites out there.
Yeah. I mean, if I this isn't my favorite, but I'm still kind of sad. How do you have a 15 collab and only release 2 out of the 4 buddies? You know what I mean? Like Gladio and Ignis. How do you break that group of 4? That was the whole theme of the game. The whole goddamn theme was that the 4 of them were like inseparable. And here's Gumi just being like, "No, those 2, forget about them."
Yeah, I mean, I could see 15 coming back through again.
Yep.
Got Gladiolus in there.
Right?
Daddiolus.
Good stuff. I hope so. Well, yeah, and we do have a couple other topics here. We're going to cover Dark Siren as well. Dark Siren, a water Esper. People wanted it. People got it. This is a really good one, too. 18 agility here. You're looking at that board. Overall, you're looking at, obviously for water units, that water attack. But the right side here is a lot of really cool intangible ones where you're getting that 20% debuff weakening, which we just talked about. We like a lot. The reaction block is certainly nice to add on to stuff like Trust Stones and for what people have innately. You're also getting accuracy, magic res, theoretically, and then 5 unit res as well. So, again, really, really great Dark Esper. No surprise given the precedent set. But, yeah, what about you? I know you've been a vocal water Esper fan. Sahag and Prince, and then this. How you feeling right now?
I mean, somebody pinched me. I mean, I feel like this is a dream at this point. I've been waiting for like a water accuracy Esper in particular for forever. I feel like it's too late at this point, because Fire Evade is faded, quite a bit. But it's still very, very nice to have. A lot of nice and unique nodes. That's something that we had talked about before. Is we wanted to see more Espers with kind of unique nodes like this. Debuff weakening. So I think this Esper is really versatile. I think that this is something that could be great on Summer Glacy. If you think about the debuff weakening, she's got 30 from her passive. She's got 25 on the card and another 20 here. So that puts her at 75% debuff weakening just passively.
It's exceptional.
That's amazing. And then you got the single target resistance on there. You can then maybe just fill in, the lightning resistance there as well. You can get up to a positive in that stat.
It's huge.
I get some magic resistance there as well, which is, definitely something that she's not that great against. So
yeah,
I think it's designed so that you could use this offensively, like on a DPS unit like Ferris or Perrine or whoever, but I think it's equally as good for Summer Glacy. I really, really like it.
I would agree with that too. Yeah. Overall, super well-rounded Esper. Don't let it fool you that it's magic-oriented instead of attack-oriented. I don't really think that matters here when you talk about the upsides of the board. The board way outweighs losing out on like 40 attack or so on a physical damage deal. Just immaterial in the broad scheme of the chess match.
For the folks out there who don't like the 13 agility tank Espers, well, here you go for Summer Glacy.
Right? Yeah, Glacy.
It's gonna cost you 36K though. So.
Right? This is low key the thing people should be like scared and nervous about. Everyone's worried about like pulling units. Dude, the Dark Espers, that's where they get. There's no pity. This is where they get you. This is the spend. And then the Vision card here. This is a really cool one that it's water and earth, so a brand new element synergy here. This obviously is kind of intended to stave off some of the lightning counterplay that water sees. That you make a water team, you're going to get barraged with a bunch of lightning units. You can throw an earth unit in there. Bradley obviously comes to mind, but Dialdo certainly does too. Both of those are great rainbow units potentially, but another great vision card. You have 15% agility. You got some human killer here, obviously more physical oriented with the physical attacks only, but still strike res of 15. Again, I'm talking about the game giving you strike res. It's there. Like, this is another great version of it. And then, yeah, AoE res, you're getting crit evade, 4 agility, up and down, great vision card.
Yeah, so both the Esper and the vision card definitely help water and Glaciella, or earth for that matter, kind of hedge against Bridal Elia. So you got the strike resistance coming in here. You've got the critical evasion going on there. I've got even some defense in there. And then back on the Esper, you had the unit resistance, you had paralyzed resistance, so I think it definitely
the debuff
sets
weakening.
And the debuff weakening is the biggest part, right? Because she's got that massive imperil.
I would say the limit break, I think people forget about this. Her limit break, when there's only one unit in it, it's up to, what is it, 60%?
60%, yeah.
60% lightning imperil is insane. That's the highest imperil in the game ever. That's insanity. Yeah, to reduce that by 20%, it's a sizable chunk of reduction. Yeah.
So technically, Glaciella, if she's got the Esperon, she's reducing that 75%. So it's at that point, it's what?
15% imperil instead, from 60 down to 15. It's awesome.
It's gonna make a significant difference. Think about like even using that Esper maybe on somebody like Dialdo, because he's got the buff for the 50% debuff weakening.
Yep.
So if you then throw that Esper on him, he can get up to that 70% mark as well.
It's awesome.
Help you out in that Skahal and Elia matchup.
Definitely. So good. All right, and then that's essentially everything we were going to talk about. We do have a quick Q&A here, and this is just the one Q&A. We do have a couple other questions that we got, but they were, I think, a little similar to some of the others we'd answered recently. So we'll just dive into this one because I think there's some fun conceptual stuff to talk about. That it's about Velas in particular, that his 140, he'll now stand inside of his snow healing spell even when he's full health to get the agility buff on himself. That means he's always within a large AoE attack range of the tank that he just healed, theoretically, if you move toward a tank, and will get himself killed, quote unquote. Have we noticed this, and have we thoughts on ways to get around it, or if it's actually a buff that might make him less viable? Did anything come to mind to you seeing this initially?
The way I recall it, I kind of always remember him doing that if he was able to get into that range, where he could heal him, both targets at once. But obviously it does have a longer casting range, so he can also kind of sit back if he's out of range and do it and still be able to hit somebody. I mean, I don't play Velas as often right now, so I don't think I've actually noticed that change, but how about you?
I don't think I've noticed as a change, because I agree. I think I used to observe that happening. Even if it hadn't and was now maybe more frequently than before, I do still think it's a good thing for him, though, for two reasons. Number one, because he's a support, whenever he uses a self-buff on himself, like his Protect and Shell or his TMR, he'll stand in place. And so naturally, depending upon your team, he'll lag behind innately just because of that buff. So this is, I think, a nice way to kind of catch up sometimes to get him closer. But number two, I do think area res is strong enough that this is a good way to keep him hidden within a group of teammates, and obviously get that unit affinity for the extra agility and turn order, which he needs for the cast time, in terms of, like, getting the edge on enemies. because he is an offensive-oriented character as well, theoretically, out of all the supports, he does some sizable damage. I do like the fact that this keeps him relatively within the team fight still, that, he only has 3 uses of that healing ability, and so once he expends those 3 heals, you still want him to do some good stuff, and if he's 4 squares, 5 squares behind the team, and the fight's happening, and he's got no influence, and people are dying, that's no good. But if he's kind of caught up in the middle of it, he's allowed to still do some of the damage that I like. So although it does technically put him maybe more in the way of incoming damage, he obviously has the heals to offset it. I would disagree that he gets himself killed in the statement here put forward by this person. I don't think he gets himself killed by standing next to the tank, because he should theoretically be in that AoE lower on the hate priority. So that's kind of my quick thought, X's and O's wise.
Yeah, so just make sure you're stacking up your area resist if you have that in the main slot for your party. You can also, there's the Warriors of the Crystal Necklace that you can get on him to get another 8% for him as well.
Yep.
So just make sure you have that stuff on him. He does have some innately, so he should be, you should be able to get him up to 40%-ish, maybe a bit more. But I think it's possible that there may have been a change there with the 140, because it does buff his agility and the team's agility, whoever gets the heal now. So maybe that could be a factor there. But I mean, getting 25% agility is going to make his turn spin around quicker too. So I don't think that's a bad thing either.
No, totally. But yeah, that's it for what we had for the Q&A today. So, we have a lot to look forward to this week. I am obviously excited to see the schedule in the next 2 to 3 weeks and what they do to catch us up. But I think that's everything we wanted to cover for now. JB, any other thoughts as we kind of wrap things up?
Yeah, so we had an absolute blast on the live stream last week. It was awesome hanging out with you all. Obviously, we got a lot of the questions that we normally handle here in real time, and we kind of addressed them there. We went for a couple hours there, so it was pretty epic. I think we talked about it. We had a great time. I think we're gonna try to mix that in a bit more often. So let us know if you guys enjoyed that. Let us know how we could improve things, or maybe other things we could add to make it more interesting. Otherwise, send us your comments and questions so that we can talk about those next time.
Most definitely. I agree with everything JB just said. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck polling this week if you are. And if you're not, just hope you're having fun with all the new stuff anyway. I know it's tough to maintain that positive attitude at the moment, but there's still a lot of fun to be had in the game. It's really just now changing the way we play and maybe some of our expectations. But I know I've done that myself. Hopefully those of you can do it as well. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.